Ceroptres are a genus of gall wasps, and these are insects that are associated very closely with plants. They lay their eggs on plants, and the plant responds by causing these interesting swellings called galls to develop. Not that one. Not that one either. Yeah, that small one. That's a gall wasp. Gall wasps are important elements of their ecological communities, meaning that they support a lot of other species in nature, and they're also relatively understudied compared to other insect groups, meaning we don't really know a whole lot about their biodiversity, their ecology, and how they're actually contributing to natural systems.
The journey to uncover these species wasn't easy. It all started when a team of researchers were struggling to identify some mysterious wasps.
I had some colleagues at a few other institutions, mainly University of Iowa, that had done a lot of work sequencing and trying to identify these wasps, but what they found was they were actually not able to determine which species of wasps they'd collected.
But thanks to a team of researchers led by Penn State graduate student Nastasi, 22 new species have been officially discovered and named for the first time.
And I was able to pretty quickly figure out the issue. They couldn't identify them because they were not species that had been known to science yet. So my role in the project was taking their data, combining it with the specimens themselves, and trying to understand how many species we had, and then actually collect data on them, and then prepare them to actually name and describe them to make them known to science.
By combining biological, molecular, and physical data, Nastasi realized they are almost an entirely undiscovered species.
The biggest challenge with identifying these species is they're really hard to tell apart. We had an initial idea of them being different species because we'd collected genetic data for them. And when you sequence the DNA of these insects, you can go through a pipeline that basically tells you you have multiple species or one species or some combination therein. And when you're dealing with such small insects, the challenge is, of course, what traits do you look at? They're all very small, very similar looking. So I had to take a lot of measurements of the physical bodies of the wasp, things like the size of the antenna segments, how big the head is, very minuscule, difficult to assess traits. And eventually, by combining the results of the genetic data as well as these measurements and what we call qualitative data, the traits of the actual insects, we were able to come to a conclusion about how many species we actually had, and then we'd, by that point, learn to tell them apart from each other.
With the help of cutting-edge analysis, he was able to identify them and give them names.
In the case of the species we studied in this one paper, we thought about the biology of these insects, that this genus Ceroptres are inquilines. They're essentially invading an existing gall, taking resources from the insects that were meant to develop in those galls, and essentially acting as usurpers of galls. And to kind of pay homage to that, what we ended up doing was choosing different individuals or characters that we thought kind of embodied that lifestyle, like thieves, usurpers, and things of that nature. So we named the species Ceroptres promethei, named for the Greek Titan Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and brought it to humans. And we have another species, Ceroptres jabbai, named for Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars. Jabba in the Star Wars universe is known for opulence, greed, and things of that nature. I've already found over 100 more that we need to name and describe, and that's probably a small splash in the bucket for this group. I think that having these really cool, interesting species names both drives public attention, but also makes the species more memorable to scientists, because that name is how that species will be referred to indefinitely